the billionaires. There's a lot of billionaires in the world, but there's only like a select few of them that get any hatred, right? 80% of your wardrobe is worn 20% of the time. You know, and then the same thing, like 80% of Earth's population lives in 20% of the countries. And 80% of the country's population lives in 20% of the states, in like the US, for example. And 80% of the population of a state will live in 20% of the cities inside the state, and so on, right? So this occurs everywhere. Wherever there's like an input and an output, or a cause and an effect, like at least one that we can measure numerically, like, for example, you know, 80% of the traffic jams occur during 20% of the daytime. So, you know, between like 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., which is when everyone's going to work, and between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. when everyone's leaving work. That's like, you know, 2 hours a day. That's what, like 10, 20% of the day where 80 or 90% of the traffic's going to happen. And this occurs everywhere. And like, why does this happen? Why is cause and effect? Why is it unfair? Like, you know, why do some people get filthy rich and other people are filthy poor? Like, why does that happen, right? Well, it happens in nature too. Because in the natural world, 80% of the fish live in 20% of the oceans, or at least species-wise. And in a forest, you'll find that 80% of the sunlight is absorbed by 20% of the plants, you know, the ones that are at the top. And, you know, in like a gorilla colony or any sort of, you know, group species that lives together, 80% of the mates or the females will go to 20% of the males. And, you know, not to be too controversial, but this is kind of the same thing with humans, right? 80% of the food is consumed by 20% of the species.